The starship Bright Horizon floated in the darkness of space like a small silver fish in an endless ocean. Below it, the planet Velrathi Prime glowed with soft purple light. Commander Daniel Cruz stood near the window of the ship and watched the alien world turn slowly beneath them. His heart was beating fast, but his face showed nothing. He had learned long ago to hide his fear. "Commander, they are ready for us," said Lieutenant Hannah Park. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice. Daniel trusted her more than anyone else on the ship. He turned away from the window and nodded. "Then let us not keep them waiting." The Velrathi were the most powerful species in this part of the galaxy. Their empire covered 47 star systems. Every alien race that had met them had eventually become their servants. Their queen, Ixara the Eternal, had ruled for more than 600 years. Nobody had ever said no to her. Nobody had ever walked away free. Earth had sent its best people for this mission. Daniel was the leader. Hannah was his second in command. Dr. Kevin Ortiz was the scientist who studied alien life. Maya Torres handled all communications. And Sergeant Lucas Grant was there to keep everyone safe. He was a big man with big hands and a gun on his hip. The shuttle dropped through the purple clouds and landed on a platform made of white stone. The air outside smelled strange, like flowers and metal mixed together. Tall figures waited for them at the edge of the platform. The Velrathi were beautiful in a frightening way. They had long bodies covered in skin that glowed with soft light. Their eyes were silver, like mirrors that showed nothing. "Welcome, humans," said one of them. His voice was like music, but cold music. "The Queen awaits." They walked through hallways carved from crystal. The walls hummed with a strange energy that made Daniel's teeth feel strange. Everywhere they looked, there were Velrathi watching them. Some looked curious. Most looked like they were watching insects. The ceremonial chamber was the biggest room Daniel had ever seen. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadow. Thousands of Velrathi stood along the walls in perfect silence. And at the far end, sitting on a throne made of living coral, was Queen Ixara. She was terrifying. She was beautiful. She was both at the same time in a way that hurt to look at. When she stood up, she was taller than Lucas, and Lucas was the tallest person Daniel knew. Her skin moved with patterns of light like fire underwater. When she walked toward them, every Velrathi in the room bowed their heads. "The humans," she said. Her voice filled the whole chamber without her raising it. "You have traveled far to stand before me. You seek alliance. You seek to be treated as equals." She smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. How very brave. How very foolish. Daniel stepped forward and bowed his head in respect. "Your Majesty, Earth wants friendship. We believe our peoples can help each other. We have much to offer." Ixara laughed. The sound made Daniel's skin feel cold. Every species says this when they first arrive. They talk of partnership. They talk of sharing. They believe they are special. She shook her head slowly. "They are not special. And neither are you." She walked closer. With each step, Daniel could feel heat coming from her body. It was like standing near a fire. The other humans behind him stepped back without meaning to. Only Daniel stayed where he was. "Do you know what happens to those who seek alliance with me?" Ixara asked. She was very close now. Daniel could see his own face reflected in her silver eyes. "I touch them. And when I touch them, their minds break. They spend the rest of their lives worshiping me. They become my servants, my slaves, my pets." She raised her hand. Her long fingers glowed with strange light. "Humans cannot withstand my touch, Commander. Your brains are too simple, too weak. One brush of my skin against yours, and you will fall to your knees. You will call me your goddess. You will forget everything except your love for me." The room was completely silent. Daniel could hear his own heart pounding in his ears. Behind him, he heard Lucas quietly putting his hand on his weapon. He heard Maya take a sharp breath. He heard Kevin whisper a prayer. This was the test. Every species faced it. Every species failed. Daniel looked at the Queen's glowing hand. He thought about Earth. He thought about his daughter, Amy, who was only 7 years old. He thought about the day he left, how she had hugged him and made him promise to come home. He thought about all the humans who had ever lived, who had fought and struggled and refused to give up even when everything seemed impossible. He was scared. He would not pretend he was not scared. But fear had never stopped humans before. Daniel took a deep breath. Then he stepped closer to the Queen. Gasps filled the chamber. The Velrathi could not believe what they were seeing. No one had ever moved toward the Queen's touch. They ran, they begged, they cried, but they never stepped forward. Exara's silver eyes went wide. For just a moment, she looked surprised. It was probably the first time she had been surprised in centuries. "Interesting," she said softly. "Very interesting." She pressed her hand against Daniel's face. The pain hit him like a wave. It felt like fire and ice and electricity all at once. Images flooded his mind. He saw stars being born. He saw planets dying. He saw 600 years of the Queen's memories pressing against his brain like a giant trying to step on an ant. And beneath it all, he felt her will. It was huge. It was ancient. It was powerful beyond anything he had ever imagined. It pushed against his mind and demanded that he kneel, that he submit, that he worship. Daniel's knees shook. Sweat ran down his face. Every part of him wanted to give up. It would be so easy, so peaceful. Just let go and fall into the darkness. But then he thought of Amy again. He thought of her smile. He thought of his promise, and something deep inside him, something that had been built by millions of years of human history, something that had survived ice ages and wars and famines and plagues. That thing refused to break. Daniel did not kneel. Instead, he raised his own hand and covered the Queen's where it rested on his cheek. "Your Majesty," he said. His voice was rough. His body was shaking, but he was still standing. "I did not come here to worship anyone." Queen Exara pulled her hand away like she had touched something hot. She stared at Daniel with an expression he could not read. For the first time in 600 years, someone had told her no. The ceremonial chamber was frozen in silence. Every Velrathi stood completely still, their silver eyes locked on the impossible scene before them. A human, a simple creature from a small planet in a forgotten corner of the galaxy, had just done what no being had done in 6 centuries. He had refused their queen. Queen Exara stared at Daniel Cruz with an expression that changed from moment to moment. Shock became confusion. Confusion became anger. And then anger became something else entirely. Something that looked almost like wonder. "This cannot be," she whispered. "Your mind should have shattered like glass." Daniel's legs felt weak. His head was pounding. The place where she had touched his face felt like it was burning. But he forced himself to stand straight and meet her eyes. "Humans are stubborn," he said. "We have had a lot of practice not giving up." Behind him, Hannah let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like hours. Lucas slowly moved his hand away from his weapon. Maya was recording everything, her eyes wide with excitement. Kevin was already making notes, his scientific mind trying to understand what had just happened. The Velrathi in the chamber began to whisper among themselves. The sound grew louder and louder, like waves crashing on a beach. Some looked frightened. Some looked angry. But many looked confused, as if the world they knew had suddenly stopped making sense. Exara raised one hand, and the whispering stopped immediately. Her power over her people was absolute. When she spoke, Everyone listened. "Leave us," she commanded. "All of you." The thousands of Varathi began to move toward the exits. They walked in perfect order, never pushing or rushing. Within minutes, the vast chamber was empty, except for the Queen and the 5 humans. Ixara walked in a slow circle around Daniel, studying him like a scientist studying a strange new animal. Her glowing skin cast strange shadows on the crystal walls. "Do you understand what you have done?" she asked. "I stood my ground," Daniel replied. "That is what humans do. You did more than that." She stopped in front of him. Up close, she was even more frightening, and even more beautiful. "When I touch a being, I do not just try to break their will. I see inside them. I feel their emotions, their memories, their deepest fears and hopes. I know them completely in that single moment of contact." Daniel felt his blood run cold. "What did you see in me?" Ixara was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than before. "I saw a species that has caused itself great pain, wars, cruelty, destruction. You have hurt each other in ways that would shock my generals." Daniel nodded slowly. He could not deny this. Human history was filled with darkness. "But," Ixara continued, "I also saw something else. I saw that same species choosing to be better, falling down and getting back up, making terrible mistakes and then working to fix them, fighting against their own worst nature, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes, winning." She reached out and touched his face again, but gently this time. The burning sensation was replaced by something warm, something almost kind. "I felt hope inside you, Commander. Real hope. Not the false hope of the ignorant, but the stubborn hope of someone who has seen the darkness and chooses to believe in light anyway." Her silver eyes seemed to glow brighter. "I have not felt hope like that in a very long time." Kevin stepped forward carefully. "Your Majesty, may I ask a question?" Ixara turned to look at him. "You may. When you touched the commander, why didn't his mind break? From a scientific perspective, I mean. What made him different?" The Queen considered this question. "I have thought about this many times over the centuries. Why do some species break more easily than others? The answer, I believe, is not about intelligence or strength. It is about connection." She walked to a nearby window and looked out at the alien sky. 3 moons were rising, each a different color. Most species I have encountered are either completely individual or completely collective. They either care only about themselves, or they lose themselves entirely in the group. Either way, my touch finds nothing solid to push against. They crumble. She turned back to face the humans. "But your species is different. You are individuals who choose to connect with each other. You form bonds of love and loyalty, but you do not lose yourselves in those bonds. Each of you carries your own fire, your own will, your own reason to keep fighting. And when I pushed against the commander's mind, I found not one will, but many. He was fighting for himself, yes, but also for his daughter, his crew, his planet, his entire species." Hannah nodded slowly. "We call it community. We are strongest when we stand together, but we are still ourselves." "Exactly." Ixara smiled, and this time it seemed genuine. "This is rare in the universe. Most beings do not understand how to be both one and many at the same time. Humans seem to do it naturally." Daniel stepped forward. "Does this mean you will consider an alliance with Earth?" The Queen's smile faded. "It means I will consider it. But you must understand, Commander, what you are asking for is unprecedented. Every species in my empire serves me because they have felt my touch and found themselves wanting. They obey because they cannot imagine doing otherwise. And you are worried about what happens if you have an ally who can say no." "Yes." Ixara's voice was cold again. An ally who can refuse me is an ally who might one day become an enemy. How do I know humanity will not turn against us in 100 years? 1,000? Your species is young. You change quickly. What you believe today, you might abandon tomorrow. Maya spoke up. With respect, Your Majesty, that same uncertainty works both ways. We are trusting you too. Your empire is vast and powerful. You could destroy Earth easily if you wanted to. We are taking a risk by being here, and yet you came anyway, because the risk of not trying was worse, Daniel said. Hiding on our little planet, waiting for someone to find us and conquer us. That is not who we are. Humans explore. We reach out. We take chances. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we get hurt. But we keep trying. Ixara studied him for a long moment. You really believe this, don't you? You really believe that peace and cooperation are worth the risk? I have to believe it, Daniel replied. I have a daughter back home. She is 7 years old. I want her to grow up in a universe where Earth is friends, not just enemies. I want her to see alien stars and meet alien peoples and know that the galaxy is full of wonder, not just danger. The Queen was silent. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I had children once, long ago, before I became what I am now. They are gone now, lost to time and old age while I continued on. She paused. I remember what it felt like to hope for their future. She straightened her shoulders and made a decision. Very well, Commander. I will give humanity a chance. But you must understand that not everyone in my empire will be happy about this. There are those who believe in the old ways. Those who think only conquest and domination can keep us safe. We will face them together, Daniel said. Ixara smiled again, and this time there was warmth in it. Together, she repeated. What a strange and wonderful word. The next 3 days passed quickly. Daniel and his team worked from morning until late at night, sitting in meeting rooms with Velrathi officials, discussing trade agreements, technology sharing, and mutual defense plans. It was difficult work. The Velrathi did not think the way humans did. Their culture was built on centuries of domination and control. The idea of treating another species as equals was new and uncomfortable for them, but progress was being made. Slowly, carefully, the foundation of an alliance was being built. On the third night, Queen Ixara invited the humans to a formal dinner in the great hall of her palace. The room was filled with important Velrathi, military commanders, government ministers, wealthy merchants, and ancient nobles. They sat at long tables made of polished black stone, eating strange foods and drinking glowing liquids from crystal cups. Daniel sat at the Queen's right hand. It was a position of great honor. Many of the Velrathi looked at him with curiosity. Some looked at him with respect. But a few looked at him with something darker, something that made the back of his neck feel cold. One of those was Lord Kavarn. Kavarn was old. Very old. He had been the commander of the Velrathi military for over 400 years. His skin had lost most of its glow, turning gray and dull. His silver eyes were cold and empty. He had conquered dozens of species in his long life, and he had never shown mercy to any of them. Halfway through the dinner, Kavarn stood up. The room fell silent. I wish to make a toast, he said. His voice was harsh, like rocks grinding together. To our new friends, the humans. He raised his cup, and others around the room did the same. But there was something wrong with his smile. It was too wide, too sharp. I have heard much about humans in these past few days, Kavarn continued. I have heard that they are brave, that they are stubborn, that they have some special quality that makes them different from other species we have conquered. He set down his cup with a loud click. I do not believe this. The room grew very quiet. Daniel could feel the tension rising like heat before a storm. I believe the humans are like every other species we have met, Kavan said. Weak, primitive, lucky, nothing more. The commander's resistance to our queen's touch was a trick, a fluke. It means nothing. Hannah's hand moved toward her hidden knife. Lucas shifted in his seat, ready for trouble. But Daniel raised a small hand, telling them to stay calm. Lord Kavarn, Daniel said. His voice was steady and polite. I understand your doubts. We are strangers here. It is natural to be suspicious of strangers. Suspicious? Kavarn laughed, but there was no humor in it. I am not suspicious, human. I am certain. Your kind does not belong in our empire. Not as allies. Not as equals. You belong on your knees, like all the others. Queen Ixara spoke then, her voice cutting through the room like a cold wind. Kavarn, that is enough. Is it, my queen? Kavarn turned to face her. Or have these creatures done something to your mind? Have they corrupted you with their touch, as you have corrupted so many others with yours? Gasps filled the room. To suggest that the queen had been compromised was a terrible insult. It was close to treason. Ixara stood slowly. Her skin blazed with light, brighter than Daniel had ever seen it. The air around her seemed to crackle with power. Choose your next words very carefully, Lord Kavarn. But Kavarn did not back down. Instead, he smiled wider. I invoke the ancient right, he said. The trial of combat. More gasps. Even some of the Velrathi, who had been looking at the humans with hostility, seemed shocked by this. You claim that these humans are worthy of alliance, Kavarn continued. I say they are not. Let us settle this the old way. Let their champion face our champion in the arena. If they win, I will accept this alliance and never speak against it again. If they lose, they leave our space forever, and we never speak of this foolishness again. Ixara's eyes narrowed. You would challenge my judgment? I would test the truth of your claims, my queen. Nothing more. This is my right under our ancient laws. Even you cannot deny it. The room held its breath. Daniel looked at Ixara and saw something he had not expected. Worry. Behind all her power and authority, she was worried. The ancient laws are clear, one of the older ministers said reluctantly. The trial of combat cannot be refused without dishonoring the crown. Ixara closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her face was calm again, but Daniel could see the effort it took. Very well, she said. The trial will take place tomorrow at noon. Choose your champion, Lord Kavarn. Kavarn bowed mockingly. I choose Threnax the Unbroken. He has never lost a fight in 400 years. He has killed beings twice his size with his bare hands. He will be more than enough for whatever champion the humans can provide. He turned to look at Daniel with those cold, dead eyes. That is, if the humans can find anyone willing to die for them. After the dinner, Daniel met with his team in their private quarters. The mood was dark. This is a trap, Lucas said, pacing back and forth. Kavarn knows we do not have anyone who can fight a Velrathi warrior. He's trying to destroy the alliance before it begins. He's right about one thing, Kevin said quietly. I have seen images of Threnax. He is 8 feet tall, has 4 arms, and is covered in natural armor. No human could beat him in a fair fight. Then we make it unfair, Maya suggested. Weapons, traps, something. Hannah shook her head. The trial of combat has rules. No weapons, no armor. Just 2 beings fighting until one cannot continue. It is meant to test true strength. Then we are finished, Kevin said. We should leave now while we still can. No. Everyone turned to look at Daniel. He was standing by the window, looking out at the alien moons. We are not running, he said. Daniel, be reasonable, Hannah said. This is not about bravery. This is about survival. If we lose this fight, we lose everything. Our alliance, our credibility, maybe even our lives. I know. Daniel turned to face them. That is why I am going to fight. The room fell silent. You are going to fight Threnax? Lucas said slowly. Threnax the Unbroken? The 8-foot killing machine? Yes. Daniel, that is insane. He will murder you. Maybe. Daniel shrugged. Or maybe not. Humans have won against impossible odds before. We are good at that. This is different, Kevin protested. This is not a battle of wills or a test of stubbornness. This is physical combat against a being who is bred for war. I know what it is. Daniel's voice was quiet but firm. And I know I might die. But if I run away, what message does that send? That humans talk big but run when things get hard? That everything I said about our courage and our spirit was just empty words? He looked at each of his team members in turn. We came here to prove that humanity deserves a place at the table. That we are more than just another weak species to be conquered. Tomorrow, I am going to prove it. Win or lose, I am going to show every Velrathi in that arena what humans are made of. Hannah stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. All right, she said. If you are determined to do this, then we are going to make sure you have every possible advantage. Lucas, start thinking about fighting techniques. Kevin, research Velrathi biology. Find any weaknesses you can. Maya, I want you to learn everything about Threnax. His fighting style, his habits, his fears, everything. She turned to Daniel and put a hand on his shoulder. If you are going to fight a monster, you are going to be ready. The morning came too fast. Daniel had slept badly, his mind full of strange dreams and darker fears. But when the sun rose over Velrathi Prime, casting purple shadows across his room, he forced himself out of bed and began to prepare. Lucas had spent the whole night teaching him techniques. How to fight against a larger opponent. How to use movement instead of strength. How to look for openings and strike fast. Daniel practiced until his muscles ached and his hands were sore. It was not enough. He knew it was not enough. But it was something. Kevin had found some useful information about Velrathi biology. Their joints were flexible, but not as strong as their muscles. Their eyes were sensitive to sudden bright lights. They breathed through small holes in their sides, not their mouths. If those holes were blocked, they would struggle to get air. It is not much, Kevin admitted, but it might help. Maya had learned everything she could about Threnax. He was famous throughout the Empire, 400 years old, undefeated in over 3,000 fights. He had killed beings of every species, in every way imaginable. He was fast despite his size and brutal despite his age. His fighting style was simple. He overwhelmed his opponents with strength and speed, crushing them before they could find their balance. He has one weakness, Maya said. Pride. He has never lost. He does not know what it feels like to be in real danger. If you can survive long enough to make him doubt himself, he might make mistakes. Daniel nodded. Survive long enough. Make him doubt. That is the plan. It is not much of a plan, Hannah said. It is the only plan we have. At noon, the arena was full. Every seat was taken. Thousands of Velrathi had come to watch the fight. They filled the stands like a silver ocean, their voices creating a constant hum of noise. The arena itself was a large circle of sand, surrounded by high walls. There was no way out except through victory or death. Daniel walked through a tunnel and stepped into the light. The crowd grew louder when they saw him. Some were cheering. Most were laughing. To them, this was entertainment. A small human against the greatest warrior. It would be quick and funny, and then they could all go home. On the other side of the arena, another tunnel opened, and Threnax stepped out. He was even more terrifying in person than in the images Maya had shown. 8 feet of muscle and armor. 4 arms, each one thick as a tree branch. His skin was dark gray, covered in natural plates that looked harder than metal. His eyes were black pits with no light in them at all. When he saw Daniel, he smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Little human," Threnax said. His voice was deep and slow. "I have killed thousands of creatures in this arena. You will not be remembered. You will just be another body in the sand." Daniel did not answer. He was too busy controlling his fear, forcing his legs to stop shaking, making his hands stay steady. In the royal box above the arena, Queen Ixara watched with a face like stone. Beside her, Lord Cavern was smiling the same cold smile as his champion. A horn sounded. The fight began. Threnax attacked immediately. He moved faster than something his size should be able to move. One moment he was across the arena. The next moment he was right in front of Daniel, all 4 arms swinging. Daniel barely dodged the first blow. The second one caught him in the chest and sent him flying. He hit the sand hard, rolling until he crashed into the wall. Pain exploded through his body. He tasted blood in his mouth. The crowd roared with excitement. "Get up, little human," Threnax called out. "I want to hurt you more before you die." Daniel pushed himself to his feet. His ribs were screaming. His vision was blurry. But he got up. That was what humans did. They got up. Threnax charged again. This time, Daniel was ready. Instead of trying to block or dodge, he ran toward the attack. It was crazy. It was stupid. It was the only chance he had. He ducked under the first arm, spun around the second, and drove his elbow into one of the breathing holes on Threnax's side. The Vorathi grunted in surprise and stumbled. Daniel did not stop. He kept moving, kept attacking those sensitive spots. A kick to the back of a knee, a strike to another breathing hole, a quick jab at the joint between shoulder and arm. None of the blows did serious damage. Threnax was too tough, too armored. But they hurt, and more importantly, they surprised him. For the first time in 400 years, Threnax was not in complete control of a fight. "What are you doing?" The warrior growled, swinging wildly. "Stand still and die like you are supposed to." "Sorry," Daniel gasped, dodging another blow. "Humans do not do what they are supposed to." The fight continued. Threnax attacked with fury, but Daniel refused to stay in one place. He kept moving, kept dodging, kept landing small hits whenever he could. The breathing holes, the joints, the spots Kevin had identified as weak points. Again and again and again, blood ran down Daniel's face from a cut on his forehead. His left arm hung limp from a blow that had nearly broken it. Every breath was agony, but he kept fighting. The crowd had fallen silent. This was not what they had expected. The human should have been dead minutes ago. Instead, he was still standing, still fighting, still refusing to give up. Threnax was breathing hard now. The attacks to his breathing holes were having an effect. He was slower, more clumsy. His black eye showed something that had never been there before. Doubt. "What are you?" Threnax demanded. "Why won't you fall?" Daniel spat blood onto the sand. "Because I made a promise. I promised my daughter I would come home. And I do not break my promises." Threnax roared and charged one more time. He put everything he had into the attack. All 4 arms. All his strength. All his speed. It was the kind of blow that had killed hundreds of opponents. Nothing could survive it. But Daniel was not trying to survive it. He ran straight at Threnax. At the last possible moment, he dropped to his knees and slid across the sand, passing under all 4 arms. As he slid, He drove both fists upward into the largest breathing hole on Threnex's chest. The Volrathi's eyes went wide. His mouth opened in shock. He tried to breathe, but no air would come. Daniel's attack had struck deep, disrupting something vital inside. Threnex fell. The arena was completely silent. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Threnex tried to rise, failed, and collapsed back into the sand. The unbroken had been broken. Daniel stood over his fallen opponent. His body was screaming with pain. He could barely see through the blood and sweat in his eyes. But he was still standing. He was still standing. The silence stretched on and on. Then, somewhere in the crowd, a single Velrathi began to pound on their seat. Then another. Then another. Soon the entire arena was filled with the sound, a strange rhythmic beating that meant respect. In the royal box, Queen Ixara rose to her feet. She was smiling, a real smile that lit up her face. Lord Kavarn was not smiling at all. Queen Ixara descended from the royal box and walked into the arena. The crowd fell silent again as she approached Daniel. He tried to bow, but his body refused to cooperate. Instead, he just stood there, swaying slightly, barely staying on his feet. "You should sit down," Ixara said gently. "You are badly hurt." "With respect, Your Majesty," Daniel replied, his voice rough. "I will stand." Something flickered in the queen's eyes. Pride, perhaps, or admiration. "You have proven something today," she said, speaking loudly enough for the entire arena to hear. "Not just that humans can fight. Many species can fight. You have proven something more important. You have proven that your species has a fire inside that cannot be put out, a will that cannot be broken, a spirit that refuses to die." She turned to face the crowd, her glowing skin casting light across the sand. "For 600 years, I have ruled this empire. For 600 years, every species that has met us has eventually bowed. They served because they had no choice, because their minds could not resist my touch, because they were alone, each individual separate and weak." She gestured toward Daniel. "But the humans are different. They are not weak, even though they are small. They are not alone, even when they stand by themselves. When I touched Commander Cruz, I did not feel one mind. I felt millions, billions, every human who has ever lived, fighting together through him. Every promise ever made, every hope ever held, every stubborn, beautiful refusal to give up." The crowd was absolutely still. They had never heard their queen speak like this. "Today, I am not accepting servants," Ixara continued. "I am not adding another conquered species to our empire. Today, for the first time in 600 years, I am making allies. True allies, equals." She raised Daniel's hand, even though the movement made him wince with pain. "Let it be known throughout the empire. The humans are friends of the Volrathi. Their enemies are our enemies. Their struggles are our struggles. From this day forward, we stand together." The arena exploded with noise. Some Velrathi were cheering. Others were pounding their seats in that strange rhythm of respect. A few, those loyal to Lord Kavarn, were silent and angry. But they were outnumbered. Ixara lowered her voice so only Daniel could hear. "You should really sit down now. You are going to fall over." "Probably," Daniel admitted. His vision was getting blurry, but it would ruin the moment. The queen laughed, a warm and genuine sound. "You really are the most stubborn creature I have ever met." "Thank you." I think medical teams rushed into the arena to help Daniel and the fallen Threnex. The massive warrior was still alive, though barely. He would survive, but his reputation as the Unbroken was finished forever. As he was carried away on a stretcher, his black eyes found Daniel's face. "Human," Threnex said weakly. "What is your name?" Daniel Cruz. Daniel Cruz. The warrior closed his eyes. I will remember that name. The first being to ever defeat me. It was not quite a compliment. It was not quite a threat. It was something in between. Daniel nodded and let the medical team lead him away. Lord Kavarn was waiting at the edge of the arena. His face was twisted with rage, but there was fear there too. He had gambled everything on this fight, and he had lost. "This is not over," he hissed as Daniel passed. "You have won a battle, human. Not the war." "There doesn't have to be a war," Daniel replied. "We can work together. All of us. Even you." Kavarn laughed bitterly. "You understand nothing. This empire was built on conquest, on dominance, on fear. You cannot change that with one fight and a few pretty words. Maybe not, but we can try." Kavarn stared at him for a long moment. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. The next few weeks were a blur. Daniel spent the first several days in a Volrathi medical facility, his broken bones being healed by technology far beyond anything Earth possessed. The Velrathi healers were amazed by how quickly he recovered. Human bodies, it turned out, were very good at repairing themselves. When he was finally well enough to work, the real negotiations began. Treaties were written. Trade agreements were signed. Communication systems were established. For the first time in history, humanity was not alone in the universe. On the day, the Bright Horizon was scheduled to depart. Queen Ixara came to see Daniel one last time. They stood together on the observation platform, watching the planet's 3 moons rise over the purple mountains. "Thank you," Ixara said. "For everything." "Thank you," Daniel replied. "For giving us a chance. I did not give you anything. You took it. You earned it." She paused. "When you touched me back in the ceremonial chamber, did you feel anything?" Daniel thought about the moment. It seemed like a lifetime ago now. "I felt your power, your age, your loneliness." The Queen was silent for a moment. "Loneliness, yes. When you have ruled for 6 centuries, when everyone around you either worships you or fears you, loneliness becomes your constant companion." She turned to look at him. "But when you touched me, I felt something else. I felt connection. Real connection. Not domination, not submission, just 2 beings reaching out to each other." "Maybe that is what allies are supposed to feel," Daniel said. "Maybe," Ixara smiled. "You should go home now, Commander Cruz. Your daughter is waiting for you." "Yes, she is." Daniel felt his heart warm at the thought of Amy. "Maybe someday you can meet her. I would like that." They stood in comfortable silence for a few more moments. Then Daniel bowed, and Ixara nodded, and they parted ways. The Bright Horizon left Velrathi Prime's orbit an hour later. As the ship accelerated toward the stars, Daniel stood at the observation window and watched the purple planet grow smaller and smaller behind them. Hannah joined him. "So, we did it. We did it. What happens now?" Daniel thought about the question. What had happened now? Humanity had made contact with a vast alien empire. They had negotiated an alliance that would change history. They had proven that humans could stand as equals among the stars. But that was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead. Lord Kavarn and those who thought like him would not give up easily. Other species in the Empire might resent humanity's special treatment. And there were countless questions still to be answered about how 2 very different civilizations could truly work together. But for now, in this moment, Daniel allowed himself to feel something he had not felt in a long time: hope. "Now," he said, "we go home. We see our families. We tell them what happened. And then we start building something new. A future where humans are not alone. A future where we are part of something bigger." Hannah nodded slowly. "A future worth fighting for." Exactly. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, and Vorathi Prime disappeared into the endless dark. But its memory remained, bright and vivid in Daniel's mind. He thought about Queen Ixara's touch, the overwhelming power of it, and how he had refused to kneel. He thought about Threnax the Unbroken, and how he had found a way to win against impossible odds. He thought about all the humans back on Earth, waiting to hear news of the mission. They had done it together. All of them. Every human who had ever lived, who had ever struggled, who had ever refused to give up. They had carried Daniel through the fire and out the other side. That was what it meant to be human. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just enduring, but overcoming. Not just existing, but reaching for the stars. Daniel smiled and turned away from the window. There was work to do. A future to build. A daughter to hug. And somewhere out there, an alien queen was smiling too, looking up at the same stars, thinking about the stubborn human who had taught her how to hope again. The universe would never be the same.